Welcome back to the lecture series. What we are doing at the moment is that we are dealing with how different kinds of soft computing techniques along with heuristics can be merged across each other, along with each other to create some very exciting kind of systems. We've already had a note to many of them. We dealt with something known as the evolutionary neural networks, the evolutionary fuzzy inference systems. We dealt with the fuzzy neural networks, the adaptive neural fuzzy inference system. We dealt with some kind of rule extraction of the fuzzy inference systems. We of course dealt with modular neural networks, the ensemble approaches, which had of course to do with neural networks playing around with each other, and of course along with some heuristic techniques which sometimes are implemented for the problem division or sometimes for the problem integration part of it. So all these things that we have done, we'll play around a little more. We'll see how we can play around with the evolutionary algorithm, not with heuristics, not with a fuzzy system, not with a neural network, but with themselves. So what happens when I try to use multiple evolutionary algorithms? What happens when I try to use not one but many of the evolutionary algorithms, and then I try to look at what happens? And then is when I try to look that can I get something exciting out of it, can I have something out of it that might not be possible with a single evolutionary algorithm. So what I would be doing is that I would be formulating a powerful evolutionary algorithm by a mixture of some evolutionary algorithms, and then is what I say that let's see if we can achieve something in totality out of it. So because it's evolutionary algorithm with evolutionary algorithm, we need to look after what are the disadvantages, issues, limitations, and the challenges that we face when working out with evolutionary algorithms. And of course there are numerous of them. We've seen them. We saw that how difficult it was to evolve a neural network. We had to involve so much of heuristics because of it. We knew how so difficult it was to solve a simple problem because of the issues that it could be struck to a local minima, avoiding the global minima. So we'll just repeat some of our discussion wherein we'll first take in a kind of motivation and we'll see into what are the issues that we deal with when working with the evolutionary algorithms. And the first of course would be a very high dimensionality. I take up simple problems. What happens is the individual size is limited in nature, but then I am here to make some really good real life applications, and those would require something like a very high dimensional kind of some very high dimensional kind of individual representation of them. Each one of the gene over here, each one of the variable over here, each one of the chromosome over here can take in some really heavy values. It can take in some very heavy values, and that is why I know that when I convert this genotypic representation into a fitness landscape. Now I know it's quite clear that whenever I said that please solve this problem of evolutionary algorithms with me, for most of the discussion you can say that we would take a de facto of the genetic algorithm being the evolutionary algorithm of use. We can say that we'll be almost taking that as a de facto. So whenever I do this kind of task, whenever I perform something of that order, what do I get is a fitness landscape that I need to make, because all my individuals would be searching this fitness landscape, and what happens that when the size is really large, what ultimately happens is that there are too many dimensions involved. There are too many dimensions involved. Now just imagine, of course we've imagined it multiple times, so again we imagine how difficult it is to optimize a fitness landscape that has some very high dimensions. You imagine that you are to find out the minima in a two-dimensional figure, where of course the vertical figure is the fitness value, so it would be a nice 3D landscape. It would be fairly easy. Of course, considering finite modality that we would be dealing in a bit later, but it would be still fine. You can search in a lot of points. You can make in a number of fitness calls in finite number of times. You can judge the landscape value at different points of times, and you can get a value. But what if I add in just one gene over it? I add in just one gene over it, and dimension increases. And what I was previously searching for, what I had previously searched for, a point in this landscape, in this three-dimensional landscape, a point over there, is now only one part of a bigger picture that I've just created. So any addition of a gene into my individual representation, what it creates is something like a massive increase in the complexity, of course similar to that what we saw in neural network, and hence when I increase so many genes, when I happen to increase an incredibly large number of genes into my individual representation, one thing that we know what would happen is a very highly dimensional, a very complex fitness landscape. And of course, since it's really very complex, you imagine it like a very big hypercube, where to take a view of it, you have to take a complete view of it, you have to make in a lot many orientations, a lot many changes in the orientation, and then you get in some idea of the landscape. So it is going to be really difficult for my genetic algorithm to do something. And of course, this is almost what we call it as the curse of dimensionality in case of neural network. Generalize the same ideas, the same concept into the problem of evolutionary computing, wherein dimensionality is really a curse. So that is what happens when the dimensionality is very high, my genetic algorithm completely fails. Now while I was dealing with the genetic algorithm, genetic programming, particle swarm optimization, Mandel optimization, or anything, I always said that we'll make it a small kind of assumption that the fitness landscape is always simple. We'll always keep it simple so that my genetic algorithm performs something, it does something, and it does not get over struggling up anyway at the local minima, avoiding the global minima. Of course, if it's a minima, I use the term minima, it would be a cost landscape. In terms of fitness landscape, the terminology would be a maxima, but then I use them wrongly, and I use them interchangeably here, just because I have been doing it over the 5 minutes. So far we have spent over this topic. So what happens when the modality is very high? So I have a, let me say it was a fitness landscape, so I will basically draw a maxima out here. Now there are so many places where a genetic algorithm can get stuck up. It can get stuck up here, it can get stuck up here, it can get stuck up anywhere, and we know this is what is the global maxima. We kind of know exactly where the global maxima lies. We know exactly what is the location of this global maxima. And hence we know that there are so many places where the genetic algorithm can get stuck. As of example, let me say that somehow the individuals were somewhere around, I don't know this here, it will be too biased, were somewhere around here, they were somewhere around here, they were somewhere around here. Crossover happened between these two, they generated offspring somewhere here, these two generated offspring somewhere here, these were all deleted up over here. Eventually there will be some here, those were pouching here, these two might cross over somewhere around here. So then you see that there is a probability that these offsprings get deleted because of an inferior fitness and this gets produced. Option number 1 that we already saw. Option number 2 would probably that I use some kind of diversity preservation in which these individuals, they happen to kind of interact with each other, these cannot interact with these, so these get converged over here and these get converged over here. And what happens is that I get this point and this point is better as my maxima quoted by the genetic algorithm. But this is of course no way the actual genetic algorithm. So all these things are very true. All these things that the genetic algorithm works are very true for these kinds of landscape where the genetic algorithm hardly has options to get struck up. But in real life we get these problems which are highly prone to getting struck up somewhere. They are so prone to getting stuck up somewhere that they might actually get stuck up somewhere. So another kind of limitations that we always have when we use any kind of genetic algorithms over here, this is a big disadvantage that we always have when using a genetic algorithm in these kinds of problems with a very high modality. Modality is by the way just the number of hills and valleys, the minimas and maximas and all these things. So if the problem has high modality, it's going to be a problem. And of course there are other problems associated with this like that. How do we set in the parameters of the genetic algorithm? So it is of course a very big problem. Who knows what the mutation rate is, who knows what the crossover rate is. So many people try to make it adaptive, either deterministic adaptive or self-adaptive as the evolutionary strategies are. So many people try to make it adaptive in nature, but still we are kind of not sure in how can we make an algorithm completely adaptive, completely parameter free and still not raise the complexity and still not raise any kind of issues in which the convergence is harmed, not raising any of those issues. So parameter setting, how do we perform that is important criteria. Some landscape may require low crossover, high mutation at some configuration. Some other landscape might require something else. How is it that we control all these parameters? Because once you run an algorithm, what you get is a final result. Once you run an algorithm, what you always get is a final result. If the algorithm gets struck up, it's likely to get struck up 50 times that you execute this algorithm. And of course, executing it 50 times would mean a lot of investment in on time, and all this gets added up. So all these problems, they do exist with the genetic algorithm. Again, it's like how do we control the diversity? How is it that we would ultimately be able to control the diversity that exists in a genetic algorithm? We know too much of it may not be good, too much of bad, it may not be good. Too much of diversity may mean no convergence at all. So many times what we do is that if we are to find out just the number of local maximas in a genetic algorithm, we say that we maintain a very high diversity. So we leave the individuals which are very diversity conscious. We leave 100 individuals which are very diversity conscious. That means they will not interact with individuals that lie far apart, they will interact only with the nearby individuals. So ultimately they all happen to, if there are 100 individuals over here, they all happen to lie at the might be 75 local maximas that we have got. You leave a genetic algorithm with 100 individuals, all the individuals diversity conscious, That is, they would only interact with nearby individuals. So you need that, so what you get towards the number of generations is this thing where all of them, or many of them, they are basically lying at some kind of maxima, or in other words, a minima in the cost landscape. Now one would either argue why only maxima, why not here, if an individual is lying over here, it probably cannot cross over with other individuals, it's not allowed. So only thing it will do is mutation, which will drive it here. It does happen. So towards the end we get so many individuals all at the maxima. So of course too much of diversity is bad. All we want is a global maxima and all the individuals converging towards it. And too low is bad because what we already saw, that it would result in the algorithm getting converged into some local minima. It would have the algorithm converge into some local optima, and hence the global optima would be completely gone. So many issues that exist with the kind of genetic algorithm, so many issues that exist that do not allow us to use genetic algorithm over a number of problems. Many times we may be lucky that we executed the genetic algorithm and it gave us the optimum results. Many times it may not give us optimum results, so there is always a probability involved. It's a completely stochastic algorithm, so there is a lot of probability involved that you will get the correct answer. Many times you run the algorithm, it gets stuck up at some local minima, you run it again at some other local minima, you run it third time at some other local minima, and finally sometimes to the global maxima that you want. So all this is something that happens when we use a genetic algorithm. So is there any way that we can solve this problem? And of course, if not completely solve this problem, is there any mechanism by which we can reduce this problem by some amount? We can contribute towards the solution to this problem by some amount. So that is what we would be doing by a parallel genetic algorithm, or in general a parallel evolutionary algorithm. That is what would be the agenda of this R that we study in firstly the parallel evolutionary algorithms. Now, as the name suggests, what are the parallel evolutionary algorithms? That a number of evolutionary algorithms, they run out in parallel to each other. A number of evolutionary algorithms that they run out in parallel to each other. Sometimes you may call a term as an ensemble of evolutionary algorithms. Now again, as we saw that an ensemble of neural networks was that you had a problem, a multiple of neural networks were solving the same problem. In ensemble, the problem is same and all the networks, they redundantly solve this problem. Similarly, in evolutionary algorithm, there can be a problem and a number of evolutionary algorithms trying to solve this problem out. So that is what is an ensemble of evolutionary algorithm, all of them running in parallel. As we have in case of a neural network, the training or the testing would happen in parallel. In case of neural network ensembles, so it would happen. In neural network, it was not necessary that this would be of the same model as this. There could be different neural networks with different models. Similarly, it's possible out over here. It's possible that one be an genetic algorithm, the other be particle swarm algorithm, or whatever. So that is what is the ensemble of evolutionary algorithm that is used many times. The uses being quite very the same that we have in case of an ensemble of neural networks, the uses being quite similar. The different ensembles may interact and exchange information. So that's some good characteristics into it. Problem limitations of one evolutionary algorithm may be solved by the other evolutionary algorithm. Now remember, if you are running out 5 different evolutionary algorithms in an ensemble approach, maybe one gets stuck at the local minima, maybe other gets stuck at the local minima, maybe third gets stuck at the local minima, but the fourth is able to get the global minima. that will be good. So that's what we require. Many times it may happen that the second and the third evolutionary algorithm might eventually help the fourth evolutionary algorithm to get out of the local minima and in turn proceed towards the global minima, and expecting sometimes it may be able to actually attain the global minima. So everything like that is possible when we maintain a symbol of evolutionary algorithms in place of an evolutionary algorithm, most of the inspiration being the same as we had in case of an symbol of neural networks. So again, so many models out over here. We'll discuss some of those in this hour of talk. We'll discuss some of them and we'll see how do they work, what is the basic methodology of their working. First model that we take up is the iron population model of genetic algorithm. It's the iron population model of genetic algorithm. Again, a very, very simple algorithm on the same lines, that what we do is that in place of one genetic algorithm solving the problem, we use many of them. So exactly the same motivation. Let me say GAN. I do not use one genetic algorithm to solve the problem. The same problem is given to n number of genetic algorithms to solve the problem, and they are all running parallel to each other. They are all running parallel to each other. But then one thing bad happens. One thing very bad happens, that this model would be equivalent to that I executed a genetic algorithm 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, and we may know that it may not be a solution. It may not be a good solution. Of course, it would be better in terms of optimization and much poorer in terms of time complexity, because we increase the time complexity by a factor of n. Genetic algorithms are always slow. Increasing the complexity by a factor of n can be harmful. So this is probably not the solution that we are trying to do, running out genetic algorithms only in parallel. What we need to carry out is the fundamental that one genetic algorithm must be able to affect, must be able to coordinate, must be able to communicate with other genetic algorithms for possibilities of better optimization. So we have to devise a mechanism by which these genetic algorithms can exchange information. We need to devise a means by which these genetic algorithms, they can exchange some kind of characteristics, they can coordinate with each other, they can cooperate with each other. Now I use the term cooperation, it's not a cooperative co-evolution, but I know that there should be means in which different genetic algorithms can exchange and coordinate their characteristics so that each one of them gets benefited. So what do? I do not allow them to have the evolutionary process in isolation. I do not leave them that this is the problem, all of you solve this problem, but rather I maintain a communication mechanism between them. And this is called as a ring-based communication. It's a ring-based architecture that I maintain with these arrows. So this is what is the clockwise ring that I've drawn. Similarly, it can be the anti-clockwise, of course, as well. This is the communication architecture that I basically evolve. Now again, concentrate on any one of these genetic algorithms and imagine it moving out. Imagine it having its own evolution in isolation. What it requires is some good characteristics. What it requires is some good characteristics that can probably be added to it at some regular intervals of time. What it requires is that can I add in characteristics to this genetic algorithm at some regular intervals of time in such a way that this gets benefited out of it. So what do I say? That I only allow it to evolve in isolation for a time period of tau. After tau, what happens is that I take the best individual Bn from here and give it to this algorithm. After the some time period tau, this genetic algorithm would have an individual that is very fit. It will have an individual that is highly fit. I simply take this individual and add it in the population pool of this genetic algorithm. So there is a kind of additional individual that I have added in this genetic algorithm. And why have I done that? Why have I added this new individual, best individual into this genetic algorithm? Because might be this genetic algorithm did not have some genes that were very important. Again, I drive in my analogy to the same biological world, where every task requires a good combination of genes. There are some good genes, there are some bad genes, we do not know, but their good character combination creates a good individual. So might be some genes are missing out over here, those need to be added. Those are good genes, but unfortunately got missed out over here. So what would happen is that those genes would come up from this individual, from this genetic algorithm. I'm passing in the best individual out over here. I'm passing in nothing but the best individual out from here to here. And that means this person is probably in possession of some good characteristic or some good genes that it would take from itself and go out over here. Again, only a copy of this is migrated from this population to this population, so this individual is actually existing out over here. The individual is very much existing out over here and only a copy of it is passed. So now in general what would happen is that all these genetic algorithms, they are allowed to evolve for a time tau, and after that there is a transfer of individual. This person transfers B1, the best individual, from this to this genetic pool. This one passes B2, the best individual so far, into this genetic pool. This one passes the pool B3 to this genetic pool, and so on. It's like in a ring, they all move towards the clockwise next genetic pool. They move in clockwise towards the next genetic pool, and there is an exchange of characteristics as a result of this transfer. Just because of this transfer taking in place from one genetic algorithm to the other genetic algorithm, there is some kind of exchange of characteristics, exchange of genes that takes place. Now again, let me go upon with the same biological or the biological model. We know that it might be a complex problem, so that means that the fitness landscape has all the complexities that can be imagined. Into a biological world, we say that there are so many types of people that are possible in this world. Many of them have good characteristics, but then and some amount of work can be done well by numerous groups of people. There is a point of time wherein you need some special task, you need to perform some special work. Even the Indians can do it, the Chinese can do it, the Americans can do it. So different people expertise to almost the same extent. And you know, they are all local maximas, and one of them is a global maxima that does it the best. Now all these different sects of people, all these different categories of people, they have their own evolution. They have their own evolution, but then isolated evolution, it does not benefit. Might be the Chinese did not have the height factor with them that needed to be added on by someone else, and they were very good, but because of the height only they were not able to perform. So there needs to be some global coordination in which some characteristics of height are added by some other set of people, say the Americans, and then suddenly people copy it, they see that it's a good characteristic that was missing in their community, and then they get a develop it. And of course, as much as develops over time, because of both these factors, a local evolution and a global coordination, a local exchange of characteristics, we normally get in the person may not belong to a particular group, may not belong to a particular region, but he is able to solve the problem the best. He has good characteristics from all the different communities. So that is what ultimately even happens out in a biological world. What we have seen over here is that both the factors were important for this to happen. The local evolution out over here and the global coordination, the global exchange of characteristics. One of them, the local evolution out over here, it specializes a person to be best in the community, and the global coordination, it added the missing characteristics to the community, and as a result, the evolution was the best. Another way, of course, to look at it is that my fitness landscape has multiple minimas, multiple optimas, and what different individual genetic algorithms over here, by their own mechanism, they'll get struck up at some or the other local minima. So if I carry out this evolution for some time period down, they'll all get struck at some local minima or some local maxima, whatever the fitness or course landscape be. They always get struck up at some optima. Now, in genetic algorithms, all getting struck at some local optima or nearly struck at some optima, we cannot guarantee that there will be a complete convergence. Nearly getting struck at some local optima is not good. So I need to do something. And that is what I do when I transfer the individuals. I try to lure all the genetic algorithms by the best people, of course it's not the biological world, by the best solution that solves the problem. I show the different optimas good places. I tell them what good places are as seen by the other genetic algorithms, and they all mutually agree what is good and what is bad. So they all try to move in towards each other and try to generate much better positions where the global optima or the global maxima is possible. So it would be like all the different local optimas and the global coordination acting as a mechanism by which these genetic algorithms, they interact and they find out what would be the best place in the entire fitness landscape. Now just a shortcoming, what did I get? This thing was possible if I had used a single genetic algorithm as well. But then we know what the solutions are. If once it gets converged at some local optima, you can never have it come out. The mutation will have limitations. The mutation rate would always be low, it will have its own limitations. You may not be able to get it converged out, and it's like the convergence is very fast because of a high crossover that we usually apply. The convergence is very high, very fast. Why do we apply in a fast crossover? Again, because of two things. Firstly, that we have a very large fitness landscape, but we assume it to have a simple shape. So very fast convergence is something that is good. And secondly, we want to concentrate more upon the better areas. They are a tentative source of better information, and that's why we always want the individuals getting in converged out at some point, and then the mutation wondering them about. So that is why this approach is better than a single genetic algorithm. So a very simple approach would be that this tau is known as the isolation period. This was known as isolation period of this approach. If the isolation period is very small, there is only global exchange of information. There is no local exchange of information. So that will be like multiple genetic algorithm. That will be like a single genetic algorithm doing the complete task. They would all behave like a single genetic algorithm. If isolation type is too large, it would behave like n parallel learning genetic algorithm with no exchange of information. So too large is bad, too small is bad. They all have got some kind of limitations. I'll have a very small algorithm out over for it. What it simply says is that I generate the random GAs. What the GA is, it's nothing but the population. The operators are all standard, so my GA is nothing but the population. So that is what I get as my collection of GAs out over here, all random. That means all random population. I say while stopping criterion is not met, evolve all GIs in G for tau generations. This is what is the isolation period. So till isolation period they all evolve, and then I carry forward that exchange of best individuals. And these two processes, they keep on repeating themselves. Wait till tau, exchange individuals, wait till tau, exchange individuals, and towards the end I return the global best individual. So very, very simple approach where how this would be carried out, it's a simple genetic algorithm. It is a very simple genetic algorithm. In fact, when I say that all the different genetic algorithms have converged out to some local optima, then you imagine what happens is that the fitness, all the individuals are operating at much smaller region in the input fitness landscape, and that region is simple. That region is simple, it has got lesser modalities, it has got lesser complexity, of course not lesser dimensions, but a lesser complexity. So out of these tau generations, after some very few generations, the fitness landscape for one genetic algorithm, for one circle out in that thing would become very simple, and that is when I'll exchange information, when they all start getting converged out towards some point. Then when I'll exchange out the best individual. Of course, if my fitness landscape is not complex, it's very simple, I'll see that I run the n genetic algorithms, and every time they all converge out at the same point. That is my global maxima or the global optima. And exchange of information hardly carries any good. It hardly carries any good. That's almost like the individual genetic algorithms are getting converged at the local maxima. And of course, this is a single genetic algorithm approach. So if I can ever be assured that my single genetic algorithm, it would get out of all the local optimas possible, it would get out of all the various local optimas possible, and in turn it will get deep converged inside the global optima. I need not maintain n number of genetic algorithms, I can do with only one of them. But of course, fitness landscape, if it's not to be found, for which the simple genetic algorithm is much better. So this was more or less the first kind of algorithm that we study out in this approach. It was the first algorithm that we study out over here. The next one is known as of course I've studied the island population model, which was this model. I will not repeat that. The next one is known as a hierarchy failed competition model, or the HFC. Again, this is an algorithm that is inspired from the biological world. It is inspired from the kind of way in which we evolve in our normal life. How do we evolve? How do we grow up in our everyday life? Now that is simple, that we first join schools, then we join colleges. In schools we go in for first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. In colleges, the first year, the second year, and so on. In schools we are competing with school children, in colleges with college children. In 5th grade we compete with people who are almost of the same capability, because they are the same grade. They are always of the same capability. When we grow up, we again compete with people of the same capability. So researchers said that in a natural world, when we are not allowing a very weak child to compete with these best state-of-the-art researchers that lie straight at the top. Why is it that our genetic algorithm does that? Why is it that it is able to cross over between a very bad individual and a very good individual, or an individual with a very bad fitness value and another individual with a very, very good fitness value? Why is it that our genetic algorithm is doing that? And then they said that let's experiment and see if we, by implementation of this motivation, can get an even better results. So what they called was the hierarchy fair competition, and as the name suggests that there would be a fair competition. All individuals would be allowed to compete only with individuals of the same order, so it's a fair competition and it operates in a hierarchy. It all operates in some kind of hierarchy. By hierarchy we mean again the same thing, that there will be a level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. As we had the first grade, the second grade, we'll have some levels. And every level is nothing but a genetic algorithm. So every level is nothing but a population pool. So what do I do is that the earlier I had this kind of, the earlier model was this thing in nature, a circular ring. Now I do have the same thing but not a circular ring. I have it in levels. This would be level 1, this would be level 2, this would be a level 3, a level 4. These would all be different types of, this would all be different genetic algorithms altogether. So here I have 4 genetic algorithms, or in general I have n genetic algorithms out over here. Each one of the level is a genetic algorithm. Since it's a genetic algorithm, it will have in some population pool. So like this, they all have some population pools with them. These are nothing but individuals. Now these levels are made on the basis of fitness. So as my y-axis I have the fitness value. A higher individual in the scale means a higher fitness. So this is much fitter than this is much fitter than this is much fitter than this. That is how I draw the various individuals. An individual occupying the higher position is more fit than the individual occupying a lower position. So that's what hierarchy fair is all about. An individual of a higher fitness is more about the individual of a low fitness. These all have got some population sizes. Those are the maximum number of individuals that they would entertain. They all have population sizes. The maximum number of individuals they would entertain, the maximum number of individuals that can operate out here. Now let this fitness value be L, I cannot call it L1 now over here. Let this fitness value be A1, this fitness value be A2, this fitness value be A3, this fitness value be A4, and this fitness value is maximum, but let me say to a maximum of A5. So this fitness value at this fitness scale is A1, A2, A3, A4 and A5. I can say any individual of this population pool, any individual of this genetic algorithm, or any individual of this level, it always lies between A1 and A2. It cannot have a fitness value that is greater than A2, it cannot have a fitness value that's less than A1, because the moment it does that, it will bounce towards the next level. The moment it has a higher fitness value, it would basically be bouncing at a higher fitness level, and the moment this individual bounces up at one level high, it bounces up a higher fitness level, then the level is changed and it's no more an individual of this level. Similarly, I2, an individual of this population, will always lie between A2 and A3 and so on. this relation would be true. Normally I would have a definition to what my lowest fitness can be any very low number, and my highest fitness can be any very high number. So I can normally get rid of this. So these relationships are always there. These relationships are always there in this hierarchical fair competition genetic algorithm. This is known as the admission threshold of level 1. So the admission threshold of level 1 is A1, the admission threshold of level 2 is A2, the admission threshold of level 3 is A3, and so on. The admission threshold of level I is nothing but AI. The schools, the colleges, they always have a minimum criteria. They say that you'll only be able to enter us if you are above this level, if you're above this fitness, if you're above this capability, else you cannot enter. So every level is very conscious of what individuals enter. If an individual is above, then only it can enter. Now when I have this kind of genetic algorithm, all these are nothing but genetic algorithms. I generate my initial population random. In fact, I generated my initial population random, divided up into this pool out over here till this thresholds are met. This is the maximum of individual that can enter over here. I generate my initial population like this. After this, what do? I carry forward the iterations in all the genetic algorithm. I execute all the genetic algorithm in isolation with each other. Now, after one genetic algorithm, what happens is that the individual fitness changes. The individuals, they change their fitness. So this individual which had this fitness out here, it changes to this fitness. So that's why when it's trying to cross up from level 1 to level 2, it will try to cross up this level because its fitness is now incremented as a result of mutation crossover or whatever the genetic operators be. Its fitness is increased, so it will try to cross over up like this. But I do not allow it to cross over like this. I say that every algorithm has a queue, which is known as an admission queue. If it wants to go up this level, it will enter into this queue. It will enter into this queue. Now, my threshold is N2. I can only have a maximum of N2 individuals out here. If these are N2 individuals out here and this comes up over here, it becomes N2 plus 1 individuals, which is not possible. It becomes an N2 plus 1 individuals, that is not possible, and hence what happens is that this individual, it cannot go here, it needs to stand in a queue. So after some iteration, what will happen is that some individuals of this population pool, they will go up here. They would try to go up over here. So after some iteration, these individuals would try to go up over here. They would line up in this admission queue. When the size of this population pool, it reduces from N2. People are leaving, individuals are leaving. So the effective size of this population pool will reduce from N2, and that is where the individuals going out, they will create some kind of vacancies. The individuals that move out, they would create some kind of vacancies, and once vacancies are created, this queue is processed. So if there were 5 individuals out over here and 3 individuals out over here, they moved, so it became 3 individuals lined up over here, I would give admission to 3 individuals here, and they would enter into this level. They would enter out into this level. And that's how this entire algorithm, this is how the entire algorithm runs. The individuals, they keep on applying some kind of mutation crossover, changing their fitness value, selecting the right level, and moving up into the admission queue of that level. Selecting in the right level and moving into the admission queue of that level. If there is shortage of individual, might be 5 left out over here and there were only 3 available, I can always fill them with random numbers of the same fitness threshold, higher than the fitness threshold. Now it's possible for individuals to move down. If the fitness value drops, they'll have to move down. They'll have to go down the level, and it's also possible that the individuals, they jump levels. So an individual of level 1, it did some excellent kind of crossover, did some kind of excellent mutation, and as a result what happened was that its fitness value increased to that extent that from level 1 it came straight up to level 3, it jumped up level 2 entirely. That is like you are in first grade, you perform so level that you move into the third grade or the fourth grade. You miss in a couple of levels in between, a couple of grades in between. And of course many places that is possible, that you can jump in classes. So that's allowed over here. You can always jump in level. If this individual happens to have a fitness value between A4 and A5, it will go directly here. It will not go here, it will not go here. It will be placed in the admission queue of the largest level. It will be placed in this kind of admission queue out over here. So that's again like a kind of mechanism by which we are applying multiple genetic algorithms in parallel with each other. Now it can just be seen that as the individuals they keep on hopping, as they keep on going across above and above, there would be some kind of mechanism by which the fitness value will keep on getting optimal in nature because of the motivation of the hierarchical fair competition. Because of this very motivation, the individuals will keep on moving up, and towards the end, this level would decide what is the best optimized individual, what is the optimal individual that we could compute with the available computation, with the available resources, with the available memory, and of course the most important, with the available kind of time period that we were given for the optimization to take place. So by some restrictions again, by some restrictions of level that we have introduced in a single genetic algorithm and split it across multiple genetic algorithms, we are sometimes able to get in a boost because of the same admission threshold and the hierarchical competition criterion. So this was the hierarchical competition. Next, we would be doing away with the parallel genetic algorithm. We go away with all that is the parallel genetic algorithm. We'll see into how can we implement the genetic algorithm, or for that sake any evolutionary algorithm in some kind of hierarchies where one algorithm operates the other algorithm. We'll see how do we carry out this task. That will be what will be the agenda for the next hour of the talk. So we'll start off with the hierarchical genetic algorithms. We'll look into what are the hierarchical evolutionary strategies, something known as the the nested evolutionary strategies, and that is what will finish off the domain of the parallel and hierarchical genetic algorithm that we took.